Welcome, everybody, to podcast number 270. Do you have too many things going on your project at one time? Should you limit your work in progress? Stay with us to find out how.
This is the Elevate Construction Podcast, delivering remarkable content for workers, leaders, and companies in construction wanting to take their next step. Get ready to step out of your comfort zone with Jason Schroeder as he encourages you to do better, live a remarkable life, and expect more. Let's go.
Welcome, everyone. I hope you're doing well. You know, most superintendents hate me for saying these things, but I just have to say that the science and the experience and the numbers and the statistics and the history all play out in this direction. That when we focus on one-piece flow, limiting work in progress, and holding our schedule dates, then we make a ton of money and we have really, really successful projects. And most superintendents are so used to starting as much work as possible, making the project site look as busy as possible, starting things and doing them in economies of scale and getting individual efficiencies and moving the schedule and pushing and advancing everywhere they can, that when I mention these concepts, I get in a lot of trouble and sometimes it gets quite contentious. In fact, recently I was sitting in front of a superintendent and talking about these things, offering to help. And I go into the office and I'm overhearing a conversation about a crew that's coming out to do paving and mass grading and delivering base. And the conversation is going something like this. Well, we already have all this dispatched because you told me this was the day that I needed to come out here. Yeah, well, the inspections aren't ready. I don't know what to tell you. Well, I've sent them all out. I've already dispatched all these trucks. I don't know what to tell you. The plants are already planning on it. And it's just chaos. And so then the super's just like, well, you're going to have to deal with it. I don't know what to tell you. And then there are like 15 different people that are coming into the office asking questions. He can't even focus on the training because there's so much busyness going on. Problem after problem, people coming in, there's issues. I have an emergency that I have to go out in the field. Somebody says, where's this missing procurement? All of these things. And then they sit down and they talk to me and they're like, yeah, we don't have a problem. There's no reason that we would need to do advanced scheduling or implement the last planner system. And I'm like, what? Like, that doesn't make any sense. So my little intro today is that it's funny, but the one thing that would fix our industry and make us a ton of money is one-piece flow, limiting work in progress, and holding the schedule. These concepts of one-piece flow. And we don't do it because we don't see how it affects other people. People are like, well, yeah, I push all the time. I advance everywhere I can, and we always finish projects. Yeah, but at what cost? Your trade partners are losing incredible amounts of money. And, when people are like, yeah, I made my normal 9%. Well, why don't you want to make 15 or 20%? Instead of breaking even on the job, why don't you want to make some money? There are just some concepts here that we need to get our minds wrapped around. Yeah, we always get these projects finished, but at what cost? So we're going to talk about limiting work in progress. This is a part of the flow series, and we're going to keep going with this because if we don't understand flow, then we're going to have a hard time doing anything right in construction because that's the single biggest thing that we can do to stabilize projects. So first and foremost, if you need project recovery, boot camps, training, consulting, construction consulting for operations, then please let us know. We can help. Also, if you have a question, please let us know. I will reply on the YouTube channel or in a podcast. And if you want to attend one of our boot camps, let us know. We already have the first superintendent boot camp going, and it's on the 17th. So the deadline is Monday morning. If you want to fit into the class, please let me know by Monday morning. Otherwise, the class will be full and you will have to wait till next time. Also, we do PM, PE, field engineer boot camps. We do scheduling and tact planning boot camps. I mean, we are just a jammin' training company. Now, I really want to get these field engineer boot camps kicked off. Probably the best thing in my entire life are the way that we currently do field engineer boot camps. If you are a part of a large company And I'm talking to you big companies out there, and even you big companies that have established programs. If you have layout specialists, if you have field engineers, if you have PEs with a field focus, you will want them to go into a field engineer, we'll call it a builder camp, whatever you want, or a field focused project engineer camp. You will want them to go into these camps and train them early and head them in the right direction. It's so much easier to train a field engineer than it is to recover and redirect a superintendent when they're already there. So please let me know. What am I excited about in life? I'm excited about real quick. So I've been planning finishing the final touches for the superintendent boot camp. We have binders that we put together. We have simulations, we have games, we have video clips, we have music, we have the whole thing. And I'm doing this event at Brian Milcher's office, the Field Verified office. He put up lights. He has a huge 4-screen, meaning he had to put 4 TVs together, 4-screen stand for the presentation area. I think, I don't know how to say the word. He calls them sexagons, but there's 6-sided objects. I don't even know what you call that. But anyway, he's got these tables that are shaped perfectly with standing mats. There's snacks, there's comfortable areas, there are scents, there are ray lights when you turn the lights off for key moments. I mean, this training facility is off the charts. It is like crack-a-lackin'. So I'm like really excited about that. I'm jacked about it. We've been preparing that for months. And, I would love to have a superintendent boot camp or one of these boot camps in every month over here in Phoenix, Arizona, training the industry. I mean, this is where we're headed. So, the other thing is when we do these boot camps, we have facilitation check-ins afterwards to keep these habits going from like a class coaching standpoint. So on we go. That's really exciting stuff. Now, let's talk about some feedback. From our fans. Hey man, thanks for the podcast invite. I've started listening to your podcast from the beginning. So far, I'm really enjoying it. I appreciate your hard truth way of speaking. Sometimes people just need to hear the truth. I've enjoyed the topic so far, and I feel that the information covered is relevant to superintendents. Keep it up, man. Awesome. All right, here's the conflict. We are way off as superintendents and other builders and PMs in every position in the industry when it comes to one-piece flow and work in progress. We just don't have any idea what we're doing, and we are proceeding in really negligent and non-cost-effective ways. This stems partly because we'll always need construction. We don't live on an island, and we're an economic superpower. What are we going to do if we ever get in a situation where construction starts to become partly automated? What are we going to do when our economy isn't as dominant as it currently is? What are we going to do when competition starts to figure out how to do this better than us? We better get our act together right now, and I'm talking like real quick. So let's get right into it. Let me tell you a story. So this was a long time ago, and I learned this from a general superintendent. They were talking about a Tucson project that they had, and it wasn't going well, and there was an existing superintendent and another superintendent, and this person eventually became a general superintendent, and he was telling me this story when he was a general superintendent. He said, when I took over the project, everybody was doing everything and rushing in a mad frenzy, probably like I do podcasts, but just like going fast, everyone working everywhere, and the project was failing financially and in every other material aspect. And so the first thing he did, and I probably told you this story before, I apologize, but he sent everybody home for a couple of days, got a plan together, and brought them back one by one in an order, in a flow, an established flow. And he said, Jason, we recovered that project. We made a ton of money, made the owner happy. And they kept doing work on that campus, by the way, after that. And the key is to establish flow and to stop working everywhere and work where they needed to work and to hold the schedule. So these concepts are not new. Like if you talk to the big general superintendents, and this is going to sound a little insulting, and I want this to hurt a little bit. One of my favorite things, and I'm being sarcastic about this, one of my favorite things is being lectured by superintendents that that work on like 5, 10, $15 million projects, even up to $60 million projects, lecturing me about how they have to push everything everywhere and run around like a chicken with their head cut off, and that they know best, as compared to all of these general superintendents that I've stolen this information from throughout, the last 2 decades. And these are general supers on billion-dollar projects, $400 million projects. I mean, these are legendary people that know about flow, know about limiting work in progress, and they know about finishing as we go. They know about these things. I mean, this is how we do things. I mean, for crying out loud, they built the Empire State Building primarily with these concepts, and primarily with using a scheduling system like tact planning. And then the AGC adopts CPM, thinking it's a good idea, and we start tanking the industry, and now everybody wants to lecture me about these things. And it's like, oh my gosh, like, I'm not going to take this anymore. The other day, I had a superintendent tell me that I didn't know what I was doing, and that I was basically totally misguided, and that's not the way to do things, and that I don't know how to train, and all these other things. And it turns out he supervises like 2 people on like $500,000 projects. And it's like, I'm not diminishing people that supervise projects that big, but if you haven't like overseeing a project with like 25 to 50 people with that amount of risk, with like some high performing players, why are you lecturing me? Like, this is just really silly. It reminds me of the story where, and I think I've told you this before, but my son Reno, and he's going to kill me for saying this, but he did not know how to use a swing when he was younger. And Effie, my second oldest, my oldest daughter, was next to him. And Reno was just kicking his legs back and forth, but he wasn't moving. And he's like, Effie, this is how you do it. And I was giggling because he wasn't swinging. He didn't know what he was doing. And he was lecturing his sister on how to do it. Like, that's how I feel sometimes. Supers, you've got to get a little mad at me right now. You're killing me with this. You're absolutely freaking killing me with this thing. Limit your work in progress. Do things one piece flow, one at a time. Do not batch things. Hold the schedule dates and finish as we go. So let's get into this right now. I've told you these concepts. So the principle is limit the work in progress. So I'm going to give you some examples. So I've told you about the envelope game, and I'm going to tell you about it again because it's so impactful. So when you play the envelope game, you have one person with 20 envelopes, papers, stamps, and you tell that person, go ahead and batch all of the folding. Fold all of them and put them in a pile. And then stuff all of them and put them in a pile. And then stamp or lick all of them and put them in a pile. And then put the stamps on them. And everybody thinks that is going to be the fastest, right? Because you're just doing one thing. You're folding papers, right? But if you take envelopes and that person folds the paper, stuffs it right away, licks it right away, and puts the stamp and then sets it in a pile, one piece flow, meaning you're bringing that piece of work to the customer in the shortest amount of time. You're not batching things. Then, and you compete. You have both people going at the same speed from a movement standpoint. You'll start to play the game. And every time I facilitate this, I get nervous because I've got like 50 people watching me, and if this exercise doesn't go well, I've just wasted 15, 20 minutes of their time, not to mention the confusion. I know how it's going to turn out, but every time I get nervous. Why? Because the batching person looks so much busier. They look like they're going to get done sooner. And I have to just say a couple prayers, get through it, and then inevitably the one-piece flow person that folds, stuffs, licks, and stamps will get done earlier. And then the batching person is still stamping things, and it usually ends up being a minute longer. And I'm like, oh, thank goodness. So if Jason Schroeder, who's done this simulation over and over and over and over, gets nervous because of how it looks, you can understand on the project that we batch things because it looks busy and it looks faster, but it's not. That's an example of one-piece flow. Okay, the other thing is time blocking. If somebody goes from meeting to meeting to meeting to meeting and then later on follows up on notes, that's batching. You're batching meetings and you're batching the reports. One-piece flow is schedule enough time to go to your meeting or do your site visit and finish the meeting minutes and the reporting and the tasks right there, right then and there. So some people are like, well, isn't time blocking batching? No, it's one-piece flow because you're getting that one piece of work to the customer as fast as you possibly can. Here's another one: answering emails right when they come. People will say, and Paul Akers is the one that brought us onto this. And I used to say, and I still have training material out there that says, hey, answer emails all in one 30-minute segment in a day. And I still do that sometimes, but it's not fastest. It just isn't. If you answer emails and texts as they come throughout the day, you will actually save more time than if you batch them. But people will argue with me because it looks busier and more effective to batch them and do them all at one time. So basically, if you answer all your emails later, then you've got 40 emails work in progress. But if you answer them one at a time, then you only have 5 that you have to get back to, or 3 or 10, instead of 50 that you have to get back to, right? That's another example. Finishing tasks while you're there. So I'll also repeat the site work example, and people argue with me about this. If you've got a mile worth of Apron where you're installing water line, but you can only install 300 linear feet of water line, don't go grade that whole mile's worth of stuff and put up traffic control and water it and do SWIP and all of these other things. If you've got a 500-acre site, you might clear that whole site, but don't remove the stumps and do the grubbing, and don't go fine grade or rough grade that whole darn thing all at once. Do it in phases. Honestly. And, do it in one piece flow out ahead of the work. Don't do it in this big economy of scale type fashion. And finish things before one area as much as you can before you go to other areas and work things in sequence. Now, here's the argument the superintendents will give me. And if you haven't noticed, I'm a skinch bit annoyed about this. So they'll be like, well, you can't do that. They're going to go grade it all at once. They're going to bring out 16 pieces of equipment. They're going to get all at once. They have to. It's going to cost less. Since I have to do your thinking for you, let me explain this. Instead of bringing out 16 pieces of massive equipment that if they're held up, you're going to spend a ton of money, not to mention the company has to buy all that equipment. But here's what you can do. When you work in one piece flow, you can bring out less equipment and less operators, and you can have better trained operators, and you can have less variation, and you can waste less money. So it isn't fixed that you have to bring out 16 large pieces of equipment to go grade that site. Bring out fewer ones, enough to where you can make your efficiencies and support each other, but do it out ahead of yourself and adjust the crew sizes and the amount of equipment. Like, that's pretty simple. The other thing is you have consistency there. You're going to make more money. The other thing is, if you have a contractor where they're like, I move all 16 pieces of equipment all together all the time, at least do the cost analysis. At least ask yourself, if I go do this and open up 500 acres worth of site, and I've got a water truck running every day, I've got all of the water that I'm using, I've got the SWIP maintenance, I've got the dust maintenance, I've got all the aprons, I've got all the traffic control, I've got all the regrading, I've got all the rain, I've got all of the equipment and the time wasted to either dry the soil out or wet it or stabilize it again or whatever, all of these different things. At least do a cost analysis between bringing equipment back out. If they can't adjust the equipment and the crew size, do a cost analysis. A lot of times we were like, let me give you an example. I was the other day, somebody said, no, we have to pave this whole thing. And it was this huge site. We have to pave this whole thing all at once. And then I drive down the road and the paving is set up into 4 sections. And I'm like, well, hold on a minute. You just told me you have to pave that all at once, but now you're paving this in 4 sections. Oh, well, it's because we asked them to at buyout. Okay, guys, this is what I'm talking about. You're just spewing out a bunch of useless garbage to me. You can plan the ductwork to come out by area. You can plan the door frames to come out by area. You can slow down the grading crews and work just out ahead of the pipe. You can do these things. You can bring out that paving contractor in segments. All you have to do is tell them in pre-construction. So that is my answer to super saying, oh no, I got to bring them all out at once. Okay, no, you don't. Work everything in sequence. Limit work in progress. Here's what we have to do. Okay, create a schedule. Design flow into it. understand your throughput time. Throughput time is the amount of time for something to run through barriers of a sequence multiplied by the flow units. And that's explained more in a book called This is Lean. But the throughput time really speaks to how long it takes to get through a process. And the amount of work in progress that is happening between those barriers, between those buffers, those delineators. And we want to reduce that as much as possible and get work product through the system as fast as we can and create flow. And I also want to say again, hold the schedule to the best extent possible. Limit the areas where you're working. That means by contractor, right? You're going to have multiple contractors flowing through the building, right? But you don't want your mechanical contractor working on all 3 floors in 5 different areas, right? You want them to focus and work in a flow at the same rate as other contractors are working at a flow in their areas. This will focus your resources, and it will allow you to stabilize your crew counts and your material inventory. So I've already talked to you about that. So here are some things that we need to talk about. When we talk about, hey, I want to get this done early, sometimes that's okay, sometimes that's bad. I'll give you an example. If we say, hey, I want to pour that foundation early just so we have it in the ground, well, it stabilizes the dirt. It's fairly low risk. We don't have to maintain it. We can as-built the anchor bolts ahead of time. And if the concrete crew has the capacity, it's just one contractor, all good, go do it. If we say, hey, we're in the finishes and there's 20 contractors working through the building, hey, I want you moving into this area early, the amount of variation that causes is really damaging. And so we have to realize that we need to intentionally design inventory buffers, capacity buffers, and time buffers. So here's what I mean by this. When somebody hears me talk, usually about just-in-time deliveries and one-piece flow and limiting work in progress, they hear me say, limit all work in progress. Don't bring out any materials sooner than a day, and they bring it to these really unrealistic parameters. And that's not what I'm saying at all. I'm saying everything has a buffer, right? If you're telling me that bar joist and corrugated metal decking, that you can't get it anymore, yeah, order it all. Get it here. Go, totally great. That inventory buffer is as soon as possible. If your curtain wall, there's like a 3-week risk profile in that, maybe your inventory buffer is 3 weeks. If it's drywall and it's pretty reliable, your inventory buffer might be 1 or 2 days. So I'm saying bring out materials just in time for the right inventory buffers. The other thing is, I want to make sure that we all understand capacity buffers. When we tell a contractor, when the super's like, oh my gosh, there's an empty area, I want you guys to move in here. They're not looking at the capacity of the company, the leadership, and the crew. When we keep people in one-piece flow, on a flow, working consistently, they're able to have the mental capacity to plan and execute work, to make work ready, and to prevent. They have the capacity to plan, to make work ready, and to prevent roadblocks, right? Which increases our quality, it increases our safety, and it allows us to make money because it reduces interruptions because we're able to plan. So when a superintendent's like, oh, I want to go get that wall in early, or I want to go do that earlier, I want to go do that. Not only are they not immediately always looking at, hey, am I going to have to redo this, which causes all of the 8 wastes, but they're also not looking at the capacity of the team. We need to be looking at capacity buffers. And then the other thing that I'll talk about in a future podcast are time buffers. So the other thing is limiting work in progress is good for cash flow. Once we finish something and we can bill for it, that's good for cash. Having a bunch of inventory on site not finishing things are bad for cash because essentially we're borrowing money, like our trade partners and our vendors are becoming like little mini banks funding things until we can get paid for them. So let me talk about this. Why is excess work bad? Here's why. Because when we don't limit work in progress, when we don't work in one-piece flow, not only do we have transitions and context switching and a loss of productivity because of larger team sizes and new people and transitions, but it also creates overproduction. And overproduction and excess inventory are the mother and father of all of the other wastes. As soon as we overproduce something, we have inventory. As soon as we have inventory, we have to transport that. As soon as we have to transport that, that's extra motion. As soon as we have motion and transportation, and our capacity buffer has been affected, meaning our team is stretched, now we have defects and quality problems. And when we have defects and quality problems, we have overprocessing. And when we have all that, we have waiting, right? And so those wastes, what I just mentioned to you right there, is where we lose our money. We didn't lose money when that blade was grading. We didn't lose money when that loader was loading. We lost money when something happened where then we have overproduction, inventory, transportation, motion, defects, overprocessing, and waiting. Because now that equipment is sitting idle, that's $95 an hour plus the burden labor rate of that human individual that's right there. Now that we have the crew waiting, that's $300 an hour, if not $500 or $600 an hour. Now that we have to move that pile, now that's $3,000 that just went out the window. I would really stop tracking production. I would start tracking the in-betweens, because that's where we lose our money. So let me give you just a quick example. When a superintendent isn't disciplined and doesn't do one-piece flow and doesn't limit work in progress and doesn't hold the schedule and doesn't allow people the mental focus and the capacity buffer, the capacity to focus on finishing as we go. And let's say that superintendent's like, oh, there's an open area, interiors, level 2, area B. And they say, oh yeah, I want you, trade partner, I want you working over here. What happens? They have to use their supervision to do more work and supervise more work. They have to stretch their people, which loses production. They are less prepared, so they have less of the materials. There's more chaos. They have more quality problems. They start bringing more materials out, which gets in people's way. And now they have more people and materials, so profits start to go down, costs start to go up. They're using more unqualified people and working more hours, which is losing productivity. Everybody starts sandbagging, so now we can't get contractors to start in other areas where they need to be. Other contractors start protecting themselves. The areas getting done too early, they get damaged. It just sits there, and then the team isn't focused on planning or removing roadblocks or continuously improving. That superintendent that just dispatched that person into that area too soon has just created so much darn variation that it's hard to recover from it. Now, there are high and low risk areas. I would encourage you to compare the costs. So always know what we're talking about. So if you're talking about like early on in the project, getting done and out of the ground early, like great, I love that. When you're talking about creating variation later on in the project, that is super damaging, and it's almost never advisable because you have multiple contractors working together. And so you have to compare the costs. You have to know what buffers you're dealing with. You have to know the risks, right? You have to know the risks. So when you're overproducing with grading, there's a risk that you have to grade pads over and over, and you have to move piles all over the place, and you have to mitigate, excess rain and flooding and things like that. That's high risk. Putting in a foundation early when the concrete contractor wants to do it anyway, and you have the information and materials, low risk, not a big deal, right? So understand your risks. So when is it really damaging? I'll give you some examples. When overproducing can get rained on. Like if you overproduce the interiors or the site grading or something like that, when it can get rained on and damaged, that's high risk. When you have to maintain it all the time, that's high risk. When it's weather sensitive, that's high risk. When it can get damaged, that's high risk. When it can bring the team out of balance, and this is the one that nobody focuses on, and we need to. When producing something before it's needed will bring the team out of balance and not allow them to proactively remove roadblocks. So you're doing something to get ahead, but then that destabilizes the team and disallows them to plan for future work. That's high risk. So the current condition is we don't understand this critical concept, and we need to. So the challenge is limit work in progress where you can, because flow is the key to lean. On we go.
Please join us next time in elevating the entire construction experience for workers, leaders, and companies coast to coast. If you're enjoying the show, please feel free to share with your construction colleagues and help us spread the word by rating, subscribing, and leaving a review on your preferred podcast listening platform. We really appreciate it. We'll catch you next time on the Elevate Construction Podcast.